Acknowledge, remember, and give thanks for those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms today. Today we have had a mass exodus out of the RV park. I'm going to show you this. This is why I had the window open. Look, I even opened up the screen. Let's go this way. So this whole row, see that one there and that one there are new today. So this RV are new. Otherwise, this whole entire row behind us was empty. We couldn't see anything because these two slots were also taken up. But yeah, you can see this entire row behind us was empty this morning. This RV came in today. This one came in a little later. The white one over there with the awning, that one came in today as well, as did the one with the white truck over there too. So there's been some pickup. I mean, this whole area was like absolutely empty and deserted. This one's been here a while, as is the one with the green awning down, but yeah, we could basically see all the back of the park in that earlier. So just put the screen back so somebody doesn't go and decide to jump out the window. But yeah, so it's been mass exodus. There was a mass exodus today. You could just look out the front window. Well, what you could see out the window. So this is where Zeffie normally lays, and that little piece of window there I could see out of. From where I normally sit, and I could see just the RVs just pulling out because it's a one-way system around here. So to come in, you all go this way, and to go out, you've got to go down to the end of the road and then across the front of the far side of the green. She's going to close this window while we talk. And Kathy's put here, New Zealand had an earthquake. I know they had one yesterday, close to where my parents live. And everybody was okay. I haven't heard about one today because I don't watch the news. Let's see, what else? I got to give a huge shout out to Paul Russo today for spending some time with me on Patreon and talking a little bit about it, because I was trying to figure out how to do the subscription service, because when I do a monthly membership for the Family Tree, for the Your Family Tree Detective. Sorry, I had to remember what the name was. So for Your Family Tree Detective, along with In the Footsteps of Your Ancestors. So I don't know if I've told you guys. I'm going to put this down. There we go. I don't know if I've actually spoken to you about it. So we've started the new business with In the Footsteps of Your Ancestors. We're doing monthly subscriptions for part of the business. And so Paul was very kind enough to spend some time with me today talking about Patreon, and we looked over some of the options that were available there and got some ideas on different monthly subscriptions you could do using Patreon, which is probably going to work better than Facebook, but we'll see. We might do a mixture of both. So there'll be the subscription side of the business, there'll be the us doing the research for you side of the business, and then there's going to be a higher end service with where we do the research. There's 3 different packages based on whether you want to do 1 line, 1 to 4 generations, 2 lines, 1 to 4 generations, or you want unlimited lines and generations done. So it was really good talking with him, came out with a lot. Oh my gosh, the ideas were flowing. Got a whole bunch of stuff written down during that time. And Kathy's asked me, what is Patreon? Patreon is a paid subscription service that you can use for monthly subscriber, if you've got people wanting to want subscribers for your business and things like that. So if you have a monthly subscription program, it's great for that. Good for people who want to get their name out there. They have different categories, like a lot of it's for creative people. So I'm still exploring it. I don't know the full in and out of it, but I am exploring it and have an account set up, got a page set up. It's not published yet because I'm still working out what the different tiers of the memberships are going to be. And then from the Your Family Tree Detective, that will then flow into our travel portion of the business, which is In the Footsteps of Your Ancestors. That is already up and running in the footstepsofyourancestors.com, where it takes you to a page on my travel website that talks about what In the Footsteps of Your Ancestors are. Just imagine, you found out where you've come from, where your ancestors came from and things, and you gather the family together and you go off on a personalized on a personal customized tour of the places that your ancestors lived, be it 100 years ago, be it 20 years ago, whatever, places, the countries that they've come from. So you can learn the history of the country that your ancestors came from. You can learn about what times were like when they left that country to come to the US, or we're not just limiting it to US people. So like for my family example, my ancestors come from England, Scotland and Ireland. So a really cool tour would be to go through that time and find out what it was like to be there in the late 1800s. Why did they choose to leave those areas and go down to New Zealand or Australia? Because some of those family members ended up in Australia. I have one family that went to Canada, the US, Australia, and New Zealand, and some stayed in the UK. So it's why did they leave? Why did they go to different countries? What was the political climate like at the time? What were the living conditions like at the time that made them leave? And I know in England they were the government was subsidising people to go and colonise New Zealand during the late 1800s. So I know that's when most of my New Zealand family came over, was from England, Scotland, Ireland in the late 1800s, because they've been subsidised by the government to come down here and to go down to New Zealand and help colonise it. So there's stories like that. So this is stuff that the journeys we will take you on in the footsteps of your ancestors, where you can go and explore these places that your families have come from, that your ancestors came from, and learn more about the history of those times. There's also things like, did your ancestors participate in World War II? What countries were they fighting in? And going back to those areas and learning about those times. I've got ancestors who were in World War I and World War II. So going back to those places where they fought and finding out about the conditions, why were they there fighting? What was it like? There is, from the physical genealogy research I've done so far, where I have been to places where my ancestors have lived, and been to places where they are buried and stuff, it gives you more of a personal connection to that time in history, if that makes sense. I've been to places where I've seen the houses that my grandparents grew up in, or my great-grandparents grew up in. I've visited the grave sites in the cemeteries in New Zealand and stood there at the gravesite of my great-great-grandmother and my great-grandmother and all of them, and I just feel this personal connection to them. It's really a cool feeling when you've done this research on this family, and you go visit them at their final resting place, and you just feel that personal connection to them, or you see the house that they grew up in. It gives you a connection to that town, and you find out more about that city or that town, and know that one of your grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents grew up in that area during this particular time, and this is what it was like this is what the living conditions in those times. So it's kind of cool to go back, and it makes history come alive for you when you've got when your ancestors are involved, when you've been doing the research, and now, yes, they're just names in a family tree. Yes, you can find them on a census. You learn about some of the jobs that they've had, the occupations they've had. You saw they had, I was looking at the family tree today, and I came across one family. They had 13 kids. I'm like, are you kidding me? But I know what is it? Let's see, Harry, Clara, my fourth great-grandfather, fourth or fifth great-grandfather, either fourth or fifth, he was married to one woman and had 6 kids with her. Then she died, and then he got married again and had another 5 children with the second wife. She died. Sorry, the first wife died. So then he got remarried to another woman, and they had 5 kids between them. So there was 11 kids that he fathered, and his second wife's helping take care of all 11 kids. The 6 from his first marriage and the 5 from his second marriage. Then he up and dies and leaves her with 11 kids. I'm like, whoa. So yeah, you can get those sorts of feelings and stories, when you read them and that sort of thing. But when you actually go and visit the places that they're from, it brings them alive for you during that time that they were there. Because yes, you can see the names, and you can see all their kids, and you can see who got married to who, when they died, when they got married, when they were baptized, where they were baptized, occupations that they've had, all based on records and stuff that get researched and things. But to add another dimension is to go visit those places that your ancestors are from, and brings them alive in your mind more, and you feel more of a connection with that person. You were talking, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents. I was fortunate enough that I got to meet some of my great-grandparents, my dad's mother's parents, my granny and pop. Them I got to meet. I don't think I got to meet any. No, the other ones I think were all gone before I came along. But granny and pop were part of my life for the first part, and we got to visit with them. And I always remember going and visiting their house, and they had these coloured lid light glass down each side of their front door, and depending which glass you looked through as to what colour the outside world was. That was kind of cool. And she always made this orange drink for us kids to drink, and I never liked it. It was sort of like, I would just rather have water, but it was this orangey, tangy stuff. And I never liked it. I just wanted the water stuff at that point. But, so I remember my interactions with my great-grandparents, just that one set out of four. So it's, and then I even got to meet some of my great-uncles, great-great-uncles and aunts and stuff. So it was kind of cool to be able to meet those people of those generations, to be able to sit down and talk with them. My parents always taught us to respect our elders and things, but I loved the stories they used to tell, the stories of them growing up, stories of their children growing up. So, my great-grandparents talking about their kids when they were their kids, which were my grandmother and her siblings when they were growing up, or my grandparents talking about when my dad was a little boy, things like that. So I loved listening to those stories that they would have. My grandmother was a great one for talking about her days in the war. She was a Women's Auxiliary Air Force back in New Zealand, and she loved talking about her stories. But my grandfather, her husband, would never talk about his time overseas fighting in World War II. It wasn't until it wasn't until just a few years ago that I found out part of his story during World War II and why he didn't talk about it. So for him, it was a very traumatic time. But of course, he never talked about it. But he was a phenomenal storyteller. He would take stories like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and you would end up in some far-off land somewhere along the way, because it doesn't stop when Goldilocks runs out of the house. Not with my grandfather. So when you come across the bit where Goldilocks runs out of the house of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, the story keeps going, and she ends up in some magical place somewhere. And what were the other ones? And then, so he would take common fairy tales. He would tell us these, sit there and talk about these fairy tales, and then he would put his twist on them. And I always remember those times just sitting there with him and listening to him, and he would do the different voices and stuff. He would pretend to fall asleep during telling you the story. You had to kiss his cheek, and he would wake up and carry on the story. It was a lot of fun with my grandfather, but I never knew anything about it until a few years ago, about the trauma that he faced during World War II. So finding out about those times made it a little more real for me. Having met this incredible man, and knowing this incredible man for however many years he was, my first 20 years, I guess. When was he? 86, I think he passed. Yeah, so like for the first 20 years of my life, I had this incredible man in my life who used to tell the most amazing stories, yet all those years he was alive, I never knew the horrors that he had faced during World War II, and the trauma and how traumatic it was for him. So it's kind of cool connecting those stories, hearing those family stories, and proving which ones are real and which ones aren't. The times when you have those family gatherings and go, oh, did you hear that your great-grandfather da 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 da, or your great-great-aunt da 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 da, and you hear these family stories and you're like, well, are they real? So you go and find out whether or not they're real, and doing the research, you can find that with these stories. So looking forward to that side of the business. It's going to be fun. So being able to help people trace their family trees, and then taking you on a journey to those locations where your ancestors came from. It's going to be a lot of fun coming around. There's been a lot of reinvention going on during this time, and like I keep telling people, I said, yes, it is a very strange time to be in, but there is an abundance of opportunities out there, an abundance of time. It's a fantastic time for you to catch up on the stuff you want to get caught up on, to get the projects done you want to get caught on, but at the same time, reevaluate, where are you in life? Are you doing what you want to do? Are you following your passion? And then making the decision, nope, I'm not following my true passion. I'm going to go out there and do it. So it's taking advantage of this time to reinvent, reinvigorate, and find that spark and turn it into a flame. So I think I've rabbited on long enough. So yeah, so we did had our moment of silence honouring those that had paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms today. We've did the learning more about the Patreon, did a little bit of work on the genealogy side of the business, getting the websites done, the Patreon stuff set up, coming up with a lot more ideas for some stick-ups. So I got a whole bunch of stick-ups to go make. And if you can't remember the stick-ups, are those canvas prints that I showed you. You got the 3x3s, the 6x6s, and the 12x12s. Yeah, we can show you. I got one of the 12x12s up. I'm still trying to figure out where to put the other one. So this is the one I have yet to figure out where to put up. I don't know if you can see that. See if that helps. Not really. But this is a picture I took at one of the campgrounds we stayed at. This is our view out the back. And it's the actual print is 12x12, but it's got a little frame. It's got a little frame around it. And these are canvas prints that will stick to just about any flat surface around. And so this is where I have this 12x12 on my bathroom door. Actually, if I do this, see, open my bathroom door, and that shines down the thing. So that's one of my canvas prints, and this is the 12x12. So the actual print size is 12x12, and then you have probably about whatever that is. So yeah, so there's that one. The other ones, do I have the other ones up? I have a couple of the 6x6s up. Let's see. I haven't done my dishes today. These are a couple of the 6x6s I have left to put up. So these are the 6x6 inch prints on the canvas background. Parable of the Sower, very good parable, but very applicable to business, all sorts of business things. And this was a really cool quote from the movie Black Hawk Down. It's what you do right now that makes the difference. And then these are the 3x3s. This is 16 to a sheet. So the 6x6s come with 4 to a sheet, 12x12s 1 to a sheet, exactly the same size sheet as you can see. And then these are all 3x3 things on here. That was my grandson's. This is all travel related stuff. And this one is my You Know You're a Genealogist If page. So, yes, you know you're a genealogist if you secretly celebrate your forebearer's birthday. You know you're a genealogist if there's a courthouse programmed into your GPS. You know you're a genealogist when you receive your collection of DNA results, when you realize your collection of DNA results is more important than your knickknacks. You know you're a genealogist if your vacation bucket list includes Fort Wayne, Salt Lake City, and Washington, D.C. And if you don't know what's in those places, you're not a genealogist. You might be a genealogist if you have a love with living in the past. Absolutely. Where's my favorite? Oh, this is... you might be you know you're a genealogist if the highlight of your last trip was a cemetery visit. I love going to cemeteries. Even if there's nobody I know in the cemeteries, I love walking through the cemeteries because there's such amazing stories there that you can see and tell with, and just stories that you can, there's so many stories there, and it's just, there's something calming and peaceful about walking through a cemetery. You might be a genealogist if dead people are more interesting to you than the living. I like that one. You know you're a genealogist if you've ever repurposed your dining room table and panic at anyone going near it. Absolutely. Mine was my office. If anybody stepped foot in my office, there was stuff all over the floors, on the tables. Can't quite do that in an RV though. You know you're a genealogist if you've ever had your photo taken in front of a tombstone and you were actually smiling. My mother actually has a picture of me in front of one of my great-grandfather's tombstone, and yes, I was smiling in the picture. You know you're a genealogist if you know more about the past than the present. You might be a genealogist if you think family history is an ancestral game of hide and seek. I love that one. So, those are some of my genealogy ones. Here's my travel ones. There are no shortcuts to any place worth going. A year from now, you'll be glad you started today. Life begins at the end of your comfort zone. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm on my way. That is definitely me. When it comes to the RV, I have no idea where I'm going after here. But I'm on my way, but I will be on my way there next Monday. A wise man travels to discover himself. Live with no excuses, travel with no regrets. I haven't been everywhere, but it's on my list. Absolutely. Life is beautiful. The road... life is... Oh, they didn't put the font very good on that one. Life is beautiful when you're on the road to somewhere. Nothing behind me, everything ahead of me, as is ever so on on the road. This is my favorite one. Home is where you park it. Wherever I park, I'm at home. Not all who wander are lost. I think that was Mark Twain that said that one. A bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. How cool is that? That was Helen that said that one. Road less traveled, always love taking that road. Which, although I have to be careful in the RV because sometimes the less travel road might have something low and I may not fit, or it might be too narrow. We travel not to escape, but for the life not to escape us. We travel not to escape life, but for life not to escape us. Road trip. And this one up here says, we must take adventures in order to know where we truly belong. We must take it. God, I did really bad. See that, or I can't. It's the lighting. We must take adventures in order to know where we truly belong. So those are just some of my stick-ups. These ones are my grandkids. Look how cute they are. Aren't they adorable? I like this picture. My two little boys. So those are just some of the stick-ups that I have. Some of the fun we've had today. Still trying to figure out where I'm going to put my RV sign. But I think I might put that on the other side of the door because I have in my bedroom on the mirror that's on the left side of the bed, it says, when I'm laying in bed, it's on the left side, it says, begin each day with a grateful heart. And on the right-hand side, which is the doorway that comes, that little hallway there, that little doorway there, there's a sliding door that comes across. So I could probably put the RV one on that so I can see that I'd rather wake up in my RV and reminds me why I'm out RVing, because you get to all sorts of places. Well, somebody's getting anxious to go for a walk. You gonna say hi? My little shy one? Come here. Good girl. Oh. Yeah, so that's it from us. We've just had kind of an R&R day, taking it slow, taking it easy, and yeah. So we will be back tomorrow morning we'll start your challenges of the day again. Today there was no thing about challenges. It was just about honouring and remembering those who made the ultimate sacrifice. So we will be back tomorrow morning with your challenges. It is going to be a very busy week for me. My calendar is packed. And I just had a sudden thought, I don't think I scheduled lunch in there, so I might even have back-to-back meetings with no lunch break scheduled. And so now I've got to go have a look at my calendar and make sure I get some breaks scheduled in there. It could be a little difficult. But anyway, have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we will catch you tomorrow. Hei konera.